Durban is South Africa's busiest port, with the KwaZulu-Natal capital hosting the start of the first round of the 1998 Stanek National Rally Championship. Organised for the 40th time by the Natal Motorcycle and Car Club, the Stanek FML Tour Natal was given an impressive send-off from the Durban City Hall on a hot and muggy morning. Drum majorettes and Zulu dancers helped create a carnival atmosphere. A novel touch saw the cream of South African rally talent arrive at the start in rickshaws. Reigning South African rally champions Jannie Hubbig and Douglas Judd led the impressive parade after crews attended a welcoming function hosted by the Mayor of Durban, Councillor Obed Mhlaba. It was a carefree start to proceedings, but ahead of the crew was a tough start to the season.
This is the car we used for the whole of last year. We were supposed to get a new car from Germany. There was some delay along the way, so hopefully the car and the whole team from Volkswagen side will be ready for the second event, and I think that'll take a lot of pressure off us to just be able to concentrate on the driving and not worry too much about the preparation and the performance of the vehicle.
First car away was the Castrol Toyota of former champions Serge Damso and Vita Bonafede, but behind the scenes a lot of midnight oil had been burnt to get the car to the start.
The gearbox and the engine would not have been available for this event, so we had to go to plan B. Drag the museum car out of its covers, that was the 95 four-wheel drive car, and try and rebuild that quickly to the A8 specifications, which we've done, and there were a few problems, but I think the car will give a reasonable account of itself today. We'll have to wait and see.
Behind Damso and Bonafede, the rest of the field was flagged away at 1-minute intervals, with reigning champions Hubbig and Judd second away. They were followed by the Sasol Ford Escort of Paolo Piazzamosso and Nick Haddon, and the Team Total Toyota Conquest of Etienne Lawrence and Robert Paisley. The Italians were making their first appearance in Class A8 in the Toyota Conquest campaign last year by Damso and Bonafede. The opening special stage was a spectator-orientated affair around the Kings Park Sports Centre. Damso and Bonafede got off to a solid start and were equal third quickest with Paolo Piazzamosso and Nick Haddon in the Sasol Ford Escort. The Kings Park special stage was a combination of tar, dirt and grass, with a good crowd turning up to see the cream of South African rally talent in action. With Jannie Hubbig performing on home territory, the new South African champion was keen to start the season with a win. Hubbig and Judd started off on the right foot by taking the special stage by a 5-second margin. Paolo Piazzamosso and Nick Haddon looked spectacular in their first appearance in the new Sasol Ford Escort RS2000. The Class A8 car develops approximately 65 horsepower more than last year's A7 car. Etienne Lawrence and Robert Paisley lost valuable seconds in the Team Total Toyota Conquest when a faulty oil warning light forced them to take it easy, and they finished a disappointing 13th. There was a good start also for Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding. They grabbed the early lead in Class A7 in the Reeks towing VW Golf and set the second fastest time of the stage. Jürgen Fecken comes from a rally family and is hugely talented, but a little early over-enthusiasm saw him flatten a small piece of Kings Park fauna and flora. No real harm done, while at the service point, technical crews were working on the problem that had cropped up with Lawrence and Paisley's car.
Our instrument panel is not calibrated properly, so the oil pressure is supposed to read 5 bar, but it's only reading 2 on the gauge, so it comes into the caution band and the light kept on flashing oil pressure. So we tapped off, and we've now just ascertained that we can just don't worry about it, as long as it doesn't go below 1, because it's not calibrated properly. So it's giving us wrong readings, so I hope that it's not going to blow up.
From Durban, crews headed up the north coast to Umdloti, the Umdloti Valley and Tongaat en route to a lunch stop in Dalton. After the lunch break, there were 4 scheduled special stages in the Dalton area before crews headed for Pietermaritzburg. In searing hot conditions, South African champions Jannie Hubbig and Douglas Judd set about stamping their authority on proceedings. On special stage 2, Hubbig and Judd took 4 seconds off Serge Damso and Vita Bonafede and 9 seconds off the Piazzamosso, Haddon and Lawrence and Paisley combinations. While Hubbig and Judd were in a hurry in the Stanbreck VW Golf, matters weren't going so well for Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding. They struggled through a large portion of the stage when a side shaft broke and they dropped 28 seconds to Hubbig and Judd. It was smoother going for Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz in the Danier Toyota Conquest. An early battle in Class A6 had developed between Jürgen Fecken and Lukowitz and Jean-Pierre Damso and Pierre Arison in the Team Total Toyota Conquest, with the early advantage lying with the Danier team. An early battle had also developed in the Group N category between new team total pairing Cliff Blackman and Johan Klaassen in a Nissan Sentra. They were leading Class N3 ahead of fellow team total crews Gijs Klein and Carolyn Simmer, who were to disappear in Special Stage 4. Early overall leaders in the Group N category were Western Cape champions Diffie Murray and Donnie Duval, who were showing a good turn of speed in the Goodwood Auto Electric Toyota Corolla, running at the front of Class N2. A great deal is at stake for manufacturers in the Group N category, which produces some of the closest rallying in the Stanek Championship. Meanwhile, up at the service point, Jannie Hubbig and Douglas Judd had gone through a wake-up call.
Yeah, the first stage was nice. We put the quickest time there, but the second one, on the third corner, we gave ourselves a nice big scare. We went very wide on the loose and hit a berm, and then did a two-wheel stunt for a few meters, and that upset the rhythm, so we just couldn't get into the swing on the second stage. But I think the concentration is 100% now. I think we've woken up.
There was also plenty of activity around the Reeks towing VW Golf, with Chart van der Walt anxiously watching his crew repairing the broken side shaft.
We had a fantastic first stage. We put in a really good time. We were the second fastest behind Jannie. Unfortunately, in the second stage, we broke the side shaft 1 or 2 kilometers from the end, so we lost a bit of time, but we're changing it now and it should be ready to go, and we'll hopefully make up the time that we lost.
6-time South African champions Serge Damso and Vita Bonafede weren't altogether happy with the suspension set up on the Castrol Toyota Conquest and were battling to get into a rhythm. Jannie Hubbig and Douglas Judd were still flying, with Paolo Piazzamosso and Nick Haddon also going well in the Sasol Ford Escort. A slight misunderstanding which saw them flatten a few sugarcane stalks cost them a couple of seconds on stage 3, but the Sasol Ford Escort crew were up into second place and going well. Only a matter of seconds separated the top 4 cars, with the Stanek FML Tour Natal shaping up to be a close fought affair. Behind the front-runners, Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding were once again operational and involved in a close Class A7 battle with Pretoria University lecturer Barry Krobler and Mike Burrows in the Team Total VW Golf. The Team Total car was at a slight disadvantage, running an 8-valve motor as opposed to the 16-valve unit in the Van der Walt car. The Class A7 opposition was cut by 1 car when Krista Ackerman and Andre Pfeiffer retired their VW Golf with a blown head gasket after a promising start. Struggling without 5th and 6th gears on their Team Total Toyota Conquest, Lawrence and Paisley lost 10 seconds to Hubbig and Judd, who were now leading the rally. The battle in Class A6 was now in full swing, with only seconds separating Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz in the Danier Toyota Conquest, and Jean-Pierre Damso and Per Aris in the Team Total Conquest. Both Fecken and Damso have impressive rally pedigrees and are 2 of the exciting young talents starting to emerge in South African rallying. Natal regional champion Tony Ball, partnered by Alec Harris in the Bulver Park VW Golf, had moved into 5th place, with the pair thus far avoiding any problems. There were troubles looming for Cliff Blackman and Johan Klaassen in the Team Total car, forced into retirement at the end of stage 4 with a broken fuel pump. It was a hive of activity around the Class A8 rookies Lawrence and Paisley's Team Total Conquest.
Just lost a bit of time on the last one. It was fairly fast and we couldn't get to 5th or 6th. I stayed in 4th. Anyway, before that was going fine. We tied 1 stage with Paolo, so I'm happy. You know, I'm still learning the car, so it's coming right. Yeah.
Stage 5 was the toughest so far and also the longest at just under 20 kilometres. With the temperatures hovering in the mid-30s, it was tough going for crews, with the dust not making it any easier. Serge Damso and Vita Bonafede were not happy with the firm suspension set up on the Castrol Toyota Conquest and were under pressure from Piazzamosso and Nick Haddon in the Sasol Ford Escort. With Damso and Bonafede still unable to find their rhythm, South African champions Jannie Hubbig and Douglas Judd had reeled off 4 special stage wins in a row and were starting to consolidate their position at the front of the field. The Hubbig-Judd sequence of special stage wins was broken by Paolo Piazzamosso and Nick Haddon in the Sasol Ford Escort. They edged out the Stanbrick VW Golf by 3 seconds and were now only 1 second behind Damso and Bonafede. The Lawrence Paisley Team Total Conquest, in 4th overall, dropped 20 seconds to Piazzamosso as a result of a bout of fuel starvation and a muddied windscreen, which they couldn't clear when the windscreen washer bottle failed. In the Class A7 battle, Barry Krobler and Mike Burrows took 5 seconds off Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding. Diffie Murray and Donnie Duval were maintaining their impressive progress in the Class N2 Toyota Corolla, with the pair extending their lead in the Group N category. Murray and Duval were still being chased by Dean Sanders and Graham Hooper in the Team Total Toyota Conquest. Frantic work on the Sasol Ford Escort, and for Paolo Piazzamusso, his win on Special Stage 5 came as something of a surprise.
Good stage. I was actually surprised. I thought we had a puncher, the tyres were going off, and it was a rather rough stage. The car took a bit of pounding, so it was to my delight and surprise when I found I was the quickest through there. My concern is that we have no starter, and the water is running quite hot, so we'll see how the day cools down if we can improve on that.
For Serge Damso and Vito Bonafede, the suspension settings on the Castrol Toyota Conquest were still a cause for concern.
We've had a bit of problem, and the stage was quite rough, so we can't, we've got a problem with suspension travel, and that's we lost a bit of time there, but we'll see, as long as we can just keep there, stay there.
Yanni Hubig and Douglas Judd regained the initiative on the shortest 6 stage, taking their 6th win of the day and extending their lead over Damso and Bonafide. This was another tough stage with a tight forest section which saw to it that crews earned their money. Race cam action supplies the evidence of that. Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding were maintaining their Class A7 lead in the Reeks towing VW Golf and had their sights on the Ball Harris A8 Golf, which was having a good run. Ergen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz, delayed by an off on stage 5 where they lost over a minute, and the Class A6 lead, was pushing his Danair Toyota Conquest to the limit to catch new class leaders JP Damso and Pierre Aris in the Team Total Conquest. Dean Saunders and Graham Hooper were also keeping up the pressure in the Class N2 battle, with Saunders being kept very busy at the wheel of his Conquest. The Murray Duval Corolla was still leading the Group N field, but Yaki and Lisa Joubert in their Jojo Tanks Nissan Sentra had benefited from the retirement of Cliff Blackman and were lying second in Class N3, behind Gijs Klein and Carolyn Simmers' Team Total Golf. The rally cars provided a spectacular sight as the bumpy dirt roads saw them flying through the air, with all 4 wheels off the ground on occasion. Nobody was more spectacular than top car publisher Doug Kemsley in the Automark Castrol Toyota Hilux, the only commercial vehicle in the event. After 7 stages, Fecken was closing in on class rival JP Damso.
Fecken, we've now completed 7 stages. Do you have a few problems?
We were actually going quite well, and then stage 5 I made a mistake and just put the left front wheel off the road, and we couldn't get the car out for about a minute and a half. So we lost a minute and a half on JP. I think we're 30 seconds behind him now. And we're trying to make it up before tonight so that we can lead A6 tomorrow.
The Toyota Hilux 1-tonner is a new breed of vehicle on the rally scene, and Doug Kemsley explains the new Bucky Challenge class.
Well, it's a project involving Toyota, Top Car, Automark, and Castrol. We're looking at bringing more interest to rallying by testing the fielding of 1-ton pickups as a relatively cheap form of rallying.
Serge Damso was much happier with his car after the technicians had applied oil to the moving parts of his Toyota suspension to free it up. Trouble for the leaders as Hubig and Judd started Special Stage 8. A broken side shaft was to lose them over 3 minutes, and with it the overall lead. They dropped back to 4th behind Piazzamusso, Serge Damso and Etienne Lorenz. Nothing was troubling Lawrence and Paisley in the Team Total Toyota Conquest, and they were happy to move up a place. Locals Peter Altersky and Clive Densham were caught out in their Mr. Toyota Conquest. Densham hurt his back in the accident and was admitted to hospital for observation, but later released. There was frantic activity around the Stanbrink VW Golf.
Yeah, we did a bit of some work on the left front drive shaft at the previous service point, and then obviously didn't go back into position in the right place. And at the start of the last stage, it obviously sheared off. So we had to do 11 kilometers with 1 drive shaft, and we've lost 3.5 minutes. So that's made a bit of a mess with our plans, but we'll see what we can do.
Darkness had fallen by the time the final stage of the day got underway. It was a spectator-orientated affair, but clouds of dust made it difficult for the competitors to see, and there was more than one car on the stage at a time. Serge Damso benefited from being first car on the road, and he took 17 seconds off Piazza Musso's overall lead and a massive 41 seconds off the luckless Habig. While it was tough on the competitors, it was great fun for the hundreds of spectators who gathered at Alexandra Park for the 4-lap contest. So, after 10 special stages, the results at the end of the first day, the Stanek FML Tour Natal, had Piazza Musso and Haddon in the lead in the Sassel Ford Escort, 12 seconds in front of Damso and Bonafide in the Castrol Toyota Conquest.
We're home and we first for today, so that makes us really happy for the Sassel Ford team. We tried really hard, and to be car number 1 tomorrow is great for us. We're really happy with this achievement.
Day 2 took competitors down the KwaZulu-Natal south coast for 10 special stages in the Park Riney and Umzinto areas. This is familiar territory for regulars on the National Championship circuit, and in contrast to the searing heat of the previous day, conditions were cool and cloudy, with ever-present threat of rain. Overnight leaders Paolo Piazza Musso and Nick Haddon in the Sassel Ford Escort were going to come under pressure from Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide with a fantastic duel on the cards. Damso and Bonafide rolled the Castrol Toyota Conquest on the first stage of Day 2 in last year's Tour Natal, but had everything under control this time around and posted exactly the same stage as Piazza Musso and Haddon. Behind Damso and Bonafide, reigning South African champions Yanni Habig and Douglas Judd in the Stanbrick VW Golf had plenty of ground to make up. They were 3 minutes down on Piazza Musso and Haddon and 73 seconds behind third place Etienne Lawrence and Robert Paisley. Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding in the Reeks Towing VW Golf were at the front of Class A7, and further down the field, a terrific battle was unfolding in Class A6. At the overnight halt, Damso and Aris were 17 seconds ahead of Fecken and Lukowitz in the Dania Conquest, who went straight onto the attack and took 14 seconds off the team total pair in the first 2 stages. At the front of the Group M standings, Diffie Murray and Donny Duval were cruising along in the Toyota Corolla and looked to have everything under control. Also on an early day to charge were Craig Trott and Brian Duncan in another of the team total entries, with Cape youngsters Richard Bem and Jonathan Bright continuing to impress in the little Opel Corsa, which was running second to the Murray Duval car. Natalians Tony Ball and Alec Harris had quietly slipped into 5th place, with the locals unconcerned about intermittent rain and the possibility of deteriorating road conditions.
The rain's coming down, but it's not wet enough to get slippery. These roads are all weather, so I'm hoping they're going to stay like that all day. It's not mud tyre country yet.
It may not have been time for mud tyres, but the conditions were such that the unwary were always in danger of being caught out. Reigning leaders Piazza Musso and Nick Haddon dropped 3 seconds to Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide on special stage 12, and the Sassel Ford Escort crew were now under severe pressure. Leading a national championship rally was a new experience for Piazza Musso and Haddon, and the pressure continued to mount as Damso and Bonafide gained another 4 seconds in special stage 13. Where Damso and Bonafide were concerned, the pressure up front is old hat, and to the 6 times champions, they were quietly chipping away at the tenuous lead held by the Sassel Ford Escort crew. While Damso and Bonafide were challenging for the overall lead, the chase was also on for Yanni Habig and Douglas Judd. The Stanbrick VW crew were starting to haul in Etienne Lawrence and Robert Paisley, while Tony Ball and Alec Harris continued to cement their hold on 5th place. At the central service point, technical crews were also struggling in difficult conditions, and Paolo Piazza Musso had a tale to tell of near disaster.
The first 3 stages this morning are going great. We're doing good times. This last stage, stage 13, we encountered a bit of a problem. We found another vehicle in the stage head-on, and luckily we just missed him. We actually just hit him with the side of the car. You can probably see the damage there. So we got off quite lightly, but it was a scary moment for us.
Special stage 14 saw Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide go into the lead for the first time on the event, but for the other member of the Damso family, Jean-Pierre, the news wasn't as good. Young Damso and Pierre Aris in the team total Toyota Conquest had slipped 4 seconds behind Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz in the battle at the top of Class A6. The talented Fecken and Lukowitz struggled to find reliability in last year's championship, but were having a terrific run. The pair had moved up to 6th place, but were under a little pressure from Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding, who were fighting their way back through the field. The pair lost over a minute in special stage 13 with a broken side shaft, but now had Fecken and Lukowitz and the Ball-Harris combination in their sights. Rallying in KwaZulu-Natal sugarcane plantations is a little like driving through a tunnel, and more open roads are a welcome relief for the crews. Diffie Murray and Donnie Duval were still in full control at the front of Group N category, with the Western Cape pair more than 2 minutes ahead of Richard Bem and Jonathan Bright. Roman Barr and Henry Marsberg were on the fringes of a top 10 placing and had been overtaken by Craig Trott and Brian Duncan, who are now into the top 10. The team total pair were having a good day too, and had also moved ahead of the Opel Corsa of Richard Bem and Jonathan Bright, who were running second to Murray and Duval in the Group N category. In another impressive display, Alan Worms and Ashley Gericke were lying 15th overall in their 1300 Opel Corsa. The team total entry of Dean Saunders and Graham Hooper were trying hard to make up time on the other competitors in the Group N category. Craig Trott and Brian Duncan were amongst those moving up the Day 2 leaderboard, with Trott understandably happy with progress.
Not too bad today. New car, decent roads, still trying to get used to it. We should have a good run. We've made up 2 places already this morning, and we're looking forward to a good event the rest of the day.
At the front of the field, Paolo Piazza-Musso and Nick Hadden were still first on the road, but were losing ground to Serge Damso and Vita Bonafede. The Sasol Ford crew were also worried about an overheating warning light that kept flashing, and were a little reluctant to push the Ford Escort to the limit. Special stage 16 was very slippery in patches, and it was tough going for crews. Back in what is a familiar situation for them at the top of the leaderboard, Damso and Bonafide were quietly and efficiently going about consolidating the ever-increasing gap between themselves and the Ford, while a steady performance saw Lorenz and Paisley hang on to their 3rd position. Back in 4th place, a terrific charge by South African champions Jannie Hubbig and Douglas Judd had taken the Stanbreek VW Golf to within half a minute of Etienne Lorenz and Robert Paisley. Hubbig and Judd had made up more than 40 seconds on the Natalians, but lost it all when they spun on stage 16. Special stage 16 also saw Tony Ball and Alec Harris lose 7 minutes through a broken side shaft and suspension problems. At the service point, a rueful Judd admitted to a gamble that had not paid off.
We went in with the wrong tyres. It's very wet at the moment, and we took a bit of a chance, and it didn't pay off. We spun out on a corner, couldn't select reverse, and then the engine stalled and took a lot of time getting going again, so we've now lost a minute on the guys that we were chasing.
With the event now into its closing stages, some interesting little cameos had developed. Barry Krobler and Mike Burrows had moved up to 8th in their team total VW Golf and were chasing after the team total conquest of Jean-Pierre Damso and Pierre Aris. Damso and Aris were now around 20 seconds adrift of Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz in the Class A6 battle, with the Dunair crew under severe pressure from Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding, who were at the front of Class A7. Only seconds separated the Dunair car and the Reeks towing VW Golf, with a top 5 finish also at stake. Eastern Cape driver Gijs Klein and Carolyn Simmer were at the front of the Class N3 in the team total VW Golf, with Richard Bem and Jonathan Bright now leading the Group N category, and Class N3 after the demise of Diffie Murray and Donnie Duval, who were also victims of Special Stage 16.
We just managed to go past Ergen. We're now 1 second in front of him. So there's just no, we can't afford a mistake now in this next stage. So hopefully we can maintain the 5th position.
Into the final special stage with Paolo Piazza-Musso and Nick Hadden now 1 minute and 40 seconds adrift of Serge Damso and Vita Bonafede, who were getting their season off to a flying start. Craig Trott and Brian Duncan were holding on to 10th place after a stirring Day 2 performance, while back in the field, an adventurous outing had taken Alan Worms and Ashley Gericke to the front of Class N1. Dean Saunders and Graham Hooper were still chasing after Group N leaders Richard Bem and Jonathan Bright, with the brother and sister combination of Yaki and Lisa Yabert at the front of Class N3 in a Nissan Sentra. Doug Kemsley and Jerry Gericke were leading the Stanek Bucky Challenge, with the pair providing for plenty of entertainment in the Castrol Toyota Hilux. The overall results then, with Serge Damso and Vita Bonafide 1 minute and 41 seconds clear of Piazza-Musso and Hadden. Lawrence and Paisley made a great start to their Class A8 career. Van der Walt and Harding won Class A7 with a terrific result for Fecken and Lukowitz, who took Class A6, and an impressive display giving Ben and Bright 11th place overall and victory in the Group N category, and a great start to the season for the Castrol Toyota team.
Yesterday we sort of settled down, and this morning we had a good weather change, so it made it interesting, and it was good to see 3 different leaders on the event.
The traditional champagne celebrations for a couple of old-timers and 2 members of the young guard in Group N winners Richard Bem and Jonathan Bright.